And now it is time for this week's difficult conversation. ISIS bride Shamima Begum is in the spotlight once more following the release of her BBC podcast, which I think is somewhat ridiculous that she was even allowed that. But she details her journey to Syria. Now, Shamima fled East London back in 2015 to join the terror organisation as a teenager alongside two others. Now, supporters claim that she was groomed by ISIS, whilst others would dub her as a traitor who knowingly and willingly joined a death cult. Now, in the BBC's latest episode of the podcast, I Am Not a Monster, Shamima discusses in detail how she was smuggled into Syria. Drury is a journalist and filmmaker who spent 18 months with the former ISIS bride, getting to know her on a personal level.
I mean, the thing with radicalisation is there's not one way that someone gets radicalised. It depends on their situation and the way...
So your friend's situation, how did that happen?
It was online mostly.
Now, in the past, Andrew expressed great sympathy with Shamima's situation, but he has since been very outspoken about how he felt manipulated and used by her. I'm pleased to say that joining me in the studio is journalist and filmmaker Andrew Drury. Hi, Andrew. Really good to meet you. Wow.
Good afternoon.
Can't believe you're 56. You look fabulous for it.
Thank you. I'll tell you anything.
So this is how I like to warm people up, start with that. So, Andrew, first of all, tell me a bit about yourself then, because how come you ended up going to this particular place and doing this particular interview? Who would go?
It's the first time it was a mistake. I'm filming a documentary called Danger Zone, and it was a day off. And it's kind of a bit jokey because all these Oxbridge journalists couldn't get to meet her because she was sending them away, so I thought I'll give it a go. Just a normal bloke. Turned up, and we were introduced to her, and she did say no. To me at first, and then I had a kind of a prepared video. I did a Netflix documentary. I showed her that when I was with these authors. I thought it might play on her heartstrings, and it did. Wow.
So you were in Syria?
I was.
And just to do this thing, you managed to see her?
Yeah.
And she saw the video?
Yeah.
And then how did it sort of transfer the relationship?
Well, after that, I mean, we had about a 2 hour, and I wasn't going to ask her about the heads in the bins. I just asked her about her personally, how she was feeling, how her family felt, the general stuff. Not really a lot of interest, but we made this bond, and where the bond had happened is when we were saying goodbye, I asked if I could shake her hand, and she said, "Can I have a hug?" And we did hug. And at that point, when the hug happened, I felt guilty immediately.
Why?
Because of what she had done. But I still did it, and I had that living with me right through the 18 months, although I continued. I had no intention to ever seeing her again. And I felt quite euphoric about meeting her because she'd become a bit of a celebrity, for right or for wrong. And then I went home, and then I was contacted by the media outlets. So the next one was the famous TV one where she went live. So
when you gave her that hug and everything, then you felt guilty. What was your thoughts of her as a person? In your mind, how did you feel about her? The
first meeting, I felt sorry for her.
Yeah.
I thought she had been groomed, because that's what everybody had said. I thought she was radicalised, and it'd been a period of time. And I felt sorry. I got a daughter her age, and she kind of like a frightened rabbit at that particular time. And so I've come back and thinking, oh, this is really quite a sad story. And I didn't think she went there. I thought she was someone had manipulated her going there.
Well, it's interesting that, because a lot of people do say she was groomed, but, how did she come across when did she tell you about the things with the bins and things like that, or did you ask her about
Later on I did, yeah.
Later on, so talk to me about the next time.
I asked her about these suicide vests, because they bothered me, because Javid had obviously said she'd sewed suicide vests. She categorically said no, she looked me in the eyes, and I don't believe her. I didn't believe her then. No, I didn't. I didn't believe her. I think she had the capability, and that was because during that second period we exchanged phone numbers, because I was told that she could have one call a week, and I wanted to, continue her story, but that call a week became texts, and in those texts, those texts over the next period of 3 months, finally told me what she was like.
Really?
My last visit did, yeah.
So we have some texts of some of the messages that were sent.
Yeah.
To talk to me about some of those messages then. What was it about the messages that then changed your mind about her?
When I was there, I mean, everybody says, did she really have kids? You must have heard that, a fake baby that she had, and she did have children. She said I was the first journalist she showed these pictures of the baby because she trusted me. She at one time said I was the closest to her. So she opened her purse, showed me this picture. There was a picture of a little boy that had chocolate around its face, a normal senior level as a baby. And when I came back, I texted her and said, do you know what, I'm really sorry, that made me really feel sad that your child lost her. And she said to me, I'm over that part of my life, and it was so casual.
Wow.
And so she said, that doesn't make me sad anymore. And for me, that completely changed it. I had a brother die when I was young, so I know what holding the death of a child is like. She didn't seem to have any emotion, totally emotionless about the death of these children. And I know everybody goes, it's trauma. It's not. That's her being.
So the second time you went, what happened then?
Well, filming when we were away doing the live broadcast with the, most people know it was where it was or saw it live. She had tantrums. That's the first time I saw her have a tantrum.
Oh, really?
So we were filming, we stopped filming, we went to a break, and she ran off in tears and had this kind of tantrum. She wasn't coming back. So I convinced her to come back on because I'd gone all the way over it. So that was another facet of her. Why
did she have a tantrum? What was she being annoyed about?
Because she's a diva. That's what she is. She courts all this press, loves it. She loves the attention. And you can quite clearly see that every time you see her. Like the last visit I had, I was talking to a Trinidadian lady that was having a few problems that she introduced me to. And because I wasn't talking to Shamima, she feigned an illness like a child would.
Oh, really?
Didn't have all the attention, wasn't on her. She's a narcissist, in my view.
Wow. Now, apparently, there was a fourth person. Was there a fourth person at the beginning?
This shocked me about the podcast, and it really made me angry because I was listening to the first episode, how she describes how she was trafficked, was looking online and searching some online things. But she told me about a girl called Shamima, and Shamima was the one that took her through the travel. She took her across the border, or explained how to get to the border, but the BBC didn't show that at all, and I'm surprised.
Well, we have a clip. This is one of. Let's see the clip.
Shamima as well.
Shamima.
Shamima.
Yeah, Shamima. Yeah.
Was she at your school too?
Yeah, she was my closest friend.
Was she?
All of them, yeah.
So she was subject to some sort of radicalisation. Was her story the same as yours? Or?
No, it's different, and it's also actually very sad, her story.
Yeah.
And if she had not been radicalised, I don't think we would have been radicalised.
No.
Well, I mean, obviously, Shamima isn't here to defend herself, and of course, that is your opinion on that. But it's interesting that that's the sort of idea of her character that you got from her. What were the conditions like at this camp that she was in?
Conditions have got worse and worse when I was there because they were bringing more women in that were still affiliated with ISIS. So the last time I went, rocks were being thrown at us. But she's living in relatively comfort. She has air conditioning in a tent. She has a TV. They have discos at night between the girls, the Western girls, so they dance to music. They've got a shop in there. They've got a shopping area. So it isn't what you think. It's not a prison as you think. It's just a tented village.
And how did she say that her children died then? Because
she said, ironically, she said under ISIS, the 2 children would have survived. That was her words. And the 3rd child died through lack of oxygen. And
wow.
I don't want to, but it seems strange all 3 died lack of oxygen. That worried me, the concern of that. That's what she said, because it seems strange. There's no real medical condition. None in her family had died of lack of oxygen, but 3 of her kids did.
Does seem somewhat,
Yeah.
But obviously, in our minds we can speculate as to how that would happen. But in your view then, having spent that time with her, and she's now claiming that she wants to come back and, because obviously she's saying that with regard to her legal representation, because she can't speak properly about this because she can't speak to the officials, do you think that she should be brought back to this country?
It's a strange one because the camp, I know, will not be there forever. It's a tented camp. The Turkish have threatened to invade on a few times, and the SDF, who are holding her, have stated that they will let all the prisoners go. So we lose control of her. I think she should be brought back here, tried and put in prison for life.
Yeah,
we've got control of her then.
So you think she should be brought back and put in prison?
Yeah, I do.
And obviously, with the death of her children, to be fair, anything could have happened, especially in the camp there as well. We don't know. We don't know the full extent of what it's really like to be there. But you spent 18 months there. So in that time, what kind of things did you do? I mean, where were you staying? Were you staying in a hotel nearby, or?
The first time we had sort of 2 or 3 weeks filming this documentary, and then we stayed in a hotel that was probably, only about 45 minutes away from it, in the northeast Syria. And it's quite a decent hotel. Now,
Shamima said that she sort of mentioned that she used to hide when she prayed in England, which I think is odd.
I think that's a nonsense.
Why was she saying that?
I don't know, because, like I said, in one of the other texts I think I told you about, she's starting to build herself a character. So if she gets anybody media there, she's now building herself into this victim. So I think that's part of the breakdown of that, saying that she had to hide her religion. I think it's something... It seems like she's guided into conversation now, because she's a different Shamima now than I first met her. So I don't know. I don't think she ever hid. She come from an Islamic household.
Well, let's play the clip of her actually saying these things.
Trust me, I used to like hide from my family that I was praying.
Did you?
That I was praying, yeah.
Did you? Yeah. You're hiding that you're praying?
Yeah.
Is that because it was a different form of prayer? Could you work out?
No. It was just like they would see a change. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they know that's not me.
So you were calculated then about doing it? You knew?
Yeah. People told me, like, hide it from your family and hide it from everyone. Don't be open about it.
So there is a group of people around that would instruct you on how to do it. Are they British people or are they online?
Online.
Are they?
Yeah.
So she's also mentioning how easy it was to get into Syria.
Yeah.
What did she tell you about how she got into Syria? Because
her explanation was that it was taken away from her. So she was actually, it was the other two girls, or the fourth girl that went beforehand. So she was basically just a travel partner. So she wasn't the lead. She flew from...
So what do you mean, her passport was taken away? You said it was taken away from her.
What was taken away from was the travel arrangements.
Okay.
So she was just one of the kids that travelled. She wasn't the main organiser.
Okay.
So she just followed the lead.
Okay, well, let's play a clip of that because we've got that.
I'm shocked by how easy it was.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm still to this day shocked by how easy it was.
But you were certainly radicalised. Do you think you were trafficked?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I personally, in my view, I think she's a piece of work. I'd be very worried about her coming back to this country because, from my view, I'd be concerned that she might stoke up a lot of hatred either towards her, but also because I don't think she's over the ISIS thing. What do you think that we should be doing? OK, you said we should bring her back here, just put her in jail. Is there no way, do you think there's any hope of her ever being rehabilitated in any way?
No, I think she's devious. I don't agree with you. I think she's devious. And from a guy that supported her at the beginning, I went on TV and said that I think she should come home. To my final thoughts, no, she can't be trusted. She's a devious, and I don't think people will turn against her. I think she could encourage girls doing the same as her. I just find her a totally devious human being.
See, now that's your view, but she has said the exact opposite. She said that she could be an example and talk about how help women, because she said she's been groomed, and help others to not do what she did.
She's certainly an example now because she's in Syria in a prison. So I don't think she can. How can she? I don't think... What use would she be? How could she de-radicalise or help stop encouraging people going? I don't see how she can.
Are you likely to go back there again?
Possibly, yeah, but I don't think she'd be... Because this show that's going out now, Your Conversation with Me, she'll watch.
Really?
Yeah, she'll know everything you've said and what I've said, so I don't think I'd be welcome ever again.
Maybe she might try and change her mind.
I doubt that. Well, she changed it once before, didn't she?
Well, exactly.
But I think the telling thing is, and we're talking about how you can categorise and how her thoughts are, was this Guantanamo Bay Diaries book that she asked me for, because this is the changes also, because she was showing herself as a victim now, and that was my big turning point. That was it. I'd done with it.
I see. But didn't she also request some books that she wanted you to get for her?
Yeah, that was one of them, yeah.
Which books were they?
Guantanamo Diaries, and there's the other one about refugees. The Guantanamo Bay Diaries is about a guy, obviously, that was held illegally in Guantanamo Bay. And so that's how she sees herself, being illegally held. And so she totally forgot of what she's done in her life.
It is difficult, isn't it, with characters like that, as to whether they will actually change their way or whether they are just... Because obviously to get where she got to, with the means that she did, she's clearly quite a clever young lady.
Yes, she is, yeah. And I know the BBC journalist that was with her, he would have been manipulated as well. You can see that. Because listening to the podcasts, I was so surprised at how biased it was. And that was what made me, carry on and do these interviews, because it really upset me. The first documentary in itself had... she was talking, and in the background they were saying girls sold for money to ISIS. And I don't know why the BBC played that.
Yeah, I haven't listened to much of that podcast, actually.
I won't listen to any more.
It was actually because I just didn't think it was right that she should be given any sort of
And nor do
platform. I think it was wrong.
I do too.
Well, listen, Andrew, are there others like this that you know of that are in this particular situation that you are in contact with?
One that's in real trouble at the moment. She's a British girl. She has a child. Can't name her for legal reasons. She's going to die soon. She's got shrapnel in her neck. She's got lack of life. She's been her citizenship's been taken away from her. So if she dies, there's going to be an orphan boy with with nowhere to go. I feel sorry for the child, but not the woman.
Oh, it's such a terrible.
So there's loads of girls like that.
Well, Andrew, listen, if you hopefully you'll come back and talk to me about all of that.
Please ask me on again.
I'd love you to, Andrew. Really, seriously, thank you so much for coming in to talk to me about that.
Thanks for inviting me.
Amazing, amazing. That is Andrew Drury. Sorry, he's a journalist and a filmmaker. He's telling us all about his experience after he met Shamima Begum, and hopefully he will come back to GBNews and tell me loads more. Thank you very much, Andrew. Much appreciated. Well, before we move on to the break, on the topic of Shamima Begum, speaking ahead of the release of the podcast, BBC journalist Joss Baker said there are different ways, excuse me, to tell the Shamima Begum story. There's the one about a 15-year-old schoolgirl who was groomed and lured to a war zone by ISIS and now needs saving from a Syrian detention camp. And there's the one about a traitor who fled Britain to join ISIS and became known the world over as a terrorist and must be stopped from coming back to Britain. And as Shamima Begum challenges the removal of her British citizenship by the UK government, I've examined her accounts to give listeners a definitive narrative on this complex, nuanced and shocking story.